During my son's wedding, the bride suddenly hissed at me, "Get out of here and don't come back. You're not welcome here." I just smiled and said, "Okay, but I'm not leaving alone." Her smug smile faded when she saw who was coming with me. She lost control. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. I was sketching drainage patterns for the southeast corner when the doorbell rang. March afternoons in Portland usually meant peace. Retired life finally offering what 40 years of deadlines never did. Time to think. Time to plan gardens instead of buildings. The bell rang again. Insistent. Rufus stood on my porch, grinning like he'd won the lottery. A woman I'd never seen before stood beside him, her hand resting on his arm with practiced ease. "Dad, we're engaged!" My son's words tumbled out before I could ask them inside. "I wanted you to meet her right away." The right away struck me first. No phone call, no gradual introduction, just this sudden presentation like showing off a car he'd bought on impulse. "Come in," I managed, stepping aside. "This is unexpected." I know. Rufus practically vibrated with nervous energy as they entered. "But when you know, right?" The woman extended her hand. "Celeste Morgan, I've heard so much about you, Mr. Boyd. Rufus says you designed half the notable buildings in Portland." Her grip was firm, confident. Manicure expensive. French tips, recent. "Notable is generous," I replied. "Functional is accurate. Please call me Delbert." She smiled and immediately began cataloging my entryway. Her eyes swept across the original crown molding, paused on the walnut banister, calculated dimensions with what looked like professional assessment. "This craftsmanship is extraordinary. You don't see this quality anymore." "Built in 1923, I said, watching her absorb the information like someone appraising inventory. We moved to the living room. I offered coffee, which they accepted. As I prepared it in the kitchen, I could hear Celeste asking Rufus about square footage, property lines, neighborhood development patterns. Her voice carried that smooth professionalism I recognized from years of contractor meetings, people who measured value before appreciating beauty. "So," I said, returning with the tray, "tell me how you two met." Rufus launched into the story with too much enthusiasm. Networking event. Industry connection. She was consulting for a luxury real estate firm. He was presenting on sustainable development. Their eyes met across the conference hall. Very cinematic, Celeste supplemented with precise details. "I work with high net worth clients primarily. Property portfolios, investment strategies, estate transitions." She said high net worth 3 times in 5 minutes. When I met Rufus, his passion for ethical development impressed me. So many people in our industry just chase profit. "What about your family?" I asked. "Where are they?" She deflected smoothly. "Seattle originally, but we weren't close. I prefer looking forward rather than back. Rufus has told me wonderful stories about you, though. Retired architect, widower, built this beautiful home. He clearly got his talent from you." The compliment felt rehearsed. I sipped my coffee and said nothing. "Actually," Rufus said, pulling papers from his messenger bag, "Celeste suggested something I think shows real maturity. A prenuptial agreement, for transparency and mutual protection." He handed me the document like it was proof of her virtue. I put on my reading glasses slowly, buying time to process this development. The contract was thick, 20 pages of legal language. "This is thorough," I said. "My attorney drafted it," Celeste explained. "I believe in protecting both parties. Marriage is a partnership, but smart partnerships have clear terms. Don't you agree, Delbert?" I flipped through the pages. Clause 7. All family assets acquired during marriage subject to equal division. Family assets, not marital assets. Family. Clause 12. Inheritance received during marriage becomes marital property after 1 year. "Has Rufus had independent legal review?" I asked. "Dad, it's fair. Celeste wouldn't—" "I'm sure," I interrupted gently. "Just standard practice, son. Any major contract deserves 2 perspectives." Rufus looked wounded. Celeste touched his arm, redirecting his attention with subtle pressure. "Would you like to see the rest of the house?" she asked me. "I'm fascinated by this period's architecture." We toured the rooms. She photographed crown moldings, supposedly for inspiration, but her angles captured more than decorative details. In the master bedroom, she paused by the window, overlooking the garden. Such a large house for one person, she observed. Have you considered what happens to it eventually? The question landed with calculated weight. Eventually is a long way off, I replied. Of course, she smiled. I only meant estate planning is crucial. Rufus mentioned you haven't updated your will recently. Did he? My tone cooled. That's a private matter between father and son. She backtracked with professional grace. Families should discuss these things openly. Prevents misunderstandings later. I prefer preventing misunderstandings now. Back downstairs, Rufus checked his watch. We should go. Reservation at 6. At the door, Celeste hugged me with calculated warmth. I'll take good care of him, she whispered against my shoulder, and I'm so glad we'll be family. The emphasis on family sounded possessive. After they drove away, I stood in the doorway holding the prenup. Small details accumulated in my mind like structural defects during inspection. The diamond bracelet she wore, 3 carats minimum, worth more than 6 months of consultant salary. Designer handbag. Knowledge of inheritance law exceeding casual interest. Questions about my will before questions about my favorite foods or hobbies. I walked to my study, spread the contract across my desk, and began making notes. Circled clause 12. Underlined clause 7. In the margin, I wrote one word. Why? The weeks after their visit crawled by with suffocating normalcy. Rufus called regularly, each conversation steering toward wedding plans, venues, guest lists, color schemes. I responded with appropriate enthusiasm, asked appropriate questions, played the role of supportive father. The prenuptial contract sat in my study drawer. Twice Rufus asked if I'd reviewed it thoroughly. Twice I deflected, still reading through the details. Truth was, I'd read it 17 times. Each reading revealed new concerns buried in legal language, but concerns weren't evidence. They were only instincts, and instincts don't convince sons blinded by infatuation. Mid-April arrived with unusual warmth. My former colleague, Robert Chen, called about meeting for lunch downtown. He wanted advice on retirement planning, transitioning from active practice to consulting work. I agreed. The restaurant he chose, Cascade Room, occupied a renovated warehouse in the Pearl District. I arrived 15 minutes early, my habit from decades of client meetings. The hostess seated me at a table near the window. Good natural light. I reviewed the menu, wondering if Robert would be late as usual, when movement across the restaurant caught my attention. I looked up and went completely still. Celeste sat at a corner table, partially obscured by a decorative column. A man in an expensive suit sat across from her, early 40s, dark hair, confident posture. Their body language screamed intimacy. She leaned close, her hand covering his on the table. His thumb stroked her wrist with familiar ease. My first instinct was to stand, march over, demand an explanation. My hand was halfway to pushing back my chair when 40 years of architectural discipline overrode emotion. Confront her now with what? Having lunch with someone? She'd have an explanation ready. Business meeting, old friend, innocent coincidence. I needed more than a single observation. I needed pattern. I signaled the waiter. Could I move to that table instead? I gestured toward a spot where a potted plant would provide partial concealment. Better lighting for my work papers. From my new position, I had a clear sightline they couldn't detect. I pulled out my phone, pretended to check messages, and activated the camera. Through the foliage, I photographed them. For 20 minutes, I watched with the attention to detail I'd once applied to blueprint reviews, cataloged every gesture, her fingers tracing his forearm, his hand briefly touching her cheek, the way they shared a dessert with a single fork, laughing at some private joke. When the waiter brought their check, the man paid without hesitation. Expensive bottle of wine, multiple courses visible on the bill even from my distance. They were comfortable together, practiced. This wasn't a first date or second meeting. This was an established relationship. When they prepared to leave, she kissed his cheek and lingered there, her lips near his ear. He whispered something that made her laugh, not the polite laugh she'd used in my living room, but something genuine and unguarded. They exited separately, professional caution suggesting they understood the need to hide. I waited 5 full minutes, paid my own bill quickly with cash, and followed to the parking area. The man climbed into a black Mercedes sedan. I photographed it, capturing the license plate clearly. Robert Chen arrived 20 minutes late, with profuse apologies about traffic. I barely registered our lunch conversation. My mind churned through implications, possibilities, strategies. After we finished, I drove directly to the office of Philip Torres, a journalist I'd known for 20 years through Chamber of Commerce networking. "Philip, I need a favor," I said. "A discreet one." He looked up from his computer. "Discreet usually means trouble. Information only. License plate to name." He studied my expression. "Legal trouble?" "Family trouble. I need to know who someone is before making decisions." Philip leaned back in his chair. "Remember when I needed an architect's assessment before buying that house on Thurman? You found those foundation issues. Probably saved me $50,000. I remember. Consider us even." He took the plate number I'd written down. 30 minutes and 2 phone calls later, he had the information. Daniel Kraus, real estate agent at Premier Properties Northwest. Specializes in luxury estates. Over $2 million. I searched for Daniel online while still in Philip's office. Found his professional profile with photograph. Same man from the restaurant. Match confirmed. Now I needed depth. I researched Portland private investigators that evening, selected Marcus Webb based on his specialty. Financial fraud and infidelity cases. His office occupied a modest suite downtown. Webb himself was unremarkable. Mid-40s, average build, forgettable face. Perfect for surveillance work. I explained the situation concisely. My son's fiancée, suspicious prenuptial agreement, intimate lunch with another man. I need her background investigated, particularly romantic history and financial patterns. Webb quoted his rates without emotion. $150 per hour plus expenses. "Whatever it takes," I said. "I want a comprehensive report." He asked one question. "If I find what you're afraid I'll find, what will you do?" I met his eyes steadily. "Protect my son." He nodded and took my retainer check. 2 weeks. I'll be thorough. Those 2 weeks stretched like 2 months. I maintained normal facade with Rufus. Weekly dinners resumed. Wedding planning discussions continued. Celeste joined twice, performing her role perfectly. Affectionate to Rufus, respectful to me, asking my opinion on ceremony details. Each time I smiled, offered suggestions, watched her with new understanding. She was good, really good. If I hadn't seen her with Daniel, I might believe the performance myself, but I had seen. And now I was waiting for proof. Webb called on May 2nd. "Report's ready. You'll want privacy when you read it." We met at his office. The folder he handed over was thick, at least 60 pages. "Took some digging," Webb said, "but the pattern's clear. She's done this before. Twice." I opened the folder and began reading. Marriage certificate from 2019. Celeste Morgan to James Whitfield. Portland businessman. Divorce filing from 2021. Settlement, $180,000 plus vehicle. Marriage certificate from 2022. Celeste Morgan to Richard Brennan, Seattle entrepreneur. Divorce filing from 2023. Settlement, $225,000 plus property transfer. Photographic surveillance from the past 2 weeks showed Celeste meeting Daniel Kraus 6 times. Hotel receipts, restaurant bills. They'd been involved at least 8 months, longer than she'd been dating Rufus. Webb's handwritten note on the final page. She's getting better at this. I closed the folder and sat in silence, absorbing the complete picture. My son wasn't in love. He was a mark, a target, a transaction she'd been planning since before they'd met. "Recommendation?" Webb asked. "Show him this today." "Not yet," I said slowly. "If I approach this wrong, she'll convince him I'm paranoid. I need better timing, complete strategy. Don't wait too long. Wedding's 4 months away?" I stood, folder in hand. "I won't let it happen. Trust me on that." I left Webb's office carrying a folder that weighed nothing and everything. Downtown Portland traffic blurred past my windshield during the drive home. My mind wasn't processing stoplights or lane changes. It operated on autopilot while conscious thought circled a single question: how to stop this without destroying my relationship with Rufus in the process. At home, I spread Webb's report across the dining table. Marriage certificates, divorce decrees, financial settlements, photographic surveillance. Each document another nail in Celeste's coffin. But hammering those nails required precision. Approach Rufus too early, she'd convince him I was jealous. controlling, unable to release him to independent life. Wait too long, legal protections would activate. Timing was everything. I needed expert guidance, not an investigator's facts, but a lawyer's strategy. The next morning, I researched Portland family law attorneys online, selecting Patricia Reynolds after reading her 23 years specializing in prenuptial disputes and fraud cases. Her office occupied a renovated Victorian in Nob Hill. I called at 9 sharp, explained briefly that I needed consultation regarding a fraudulent prenuptial agreement. She had an opening at 11. Reynolds herself was a sharp-featured woman in her 50s with a direct manner suggesting no tolerance for wasted time. I presented the situation concisely, showed her Webb's report. She studied the documents with professional intensity, occasionally making notes in precise handwriting. After 20 minutes, she looked up. Oregon's Uniform Premarital Agreement Act allows voiding contracts obtained through fraud, duress, or failure to disclose. Your challenge is proving fraudulent. Intent existed before contract signing. She explained the burden of proof, pattern of behavior, financial motivation, concealment of material facts. The previous marriages help establish pattern. Her relationship with this Daniel person demonstrates ongoing deception, but you'll need testimony from prior husbands, victims willing to state she employed identical tactics. Reynolds quoted her retainer fee, $5,000 for comprehensive case preparation. I wrote the check immediately. Document everything from this point forward, she advised. Record conversations if Oregon's one-party consent law allows. It does, if you're a participant. Get your son's permission to record family discussions about wedding planning. Don't tell him why yet. I left with a legal roadmap. That afternoon, I returned to Webb's office. I need you to find her previous husbands. Both of them. I need to know if they'll talk, if they'll testify if necessary. Webb pulled out notes from his report. Kevin Morgan, first husband, lives in Seattle. Tech consultant, divorced her 3 years ago. Second husband, James Pritchard, moved to San Francisco after their divorce 2 years back. He's harder to locate. Changed jobs, possibly changed his name to escape association with the divorce. I authorized additional investigation expenses without hesitation, whatever it costs. These men are key to establishing pattern. My attorney says their testimony could void the prenuptial contract entirely. Webb accepted the assignment with a warning. Some divorce victims don't want to relive trauma. They might refuse involvement. Then I'll convince them, I said. They deserve to know she's doing it again. That evening, Rufus called about weekend brunch with Celeste. She wanted to bond more with Dad before the wedding. I seized the opportunity. Son, I've been thinking. This is a significant time in your life. Would you mind if I recorded some of our conversations? Family history project. Capturing stories, advice, memories. Something you and Celeste can look back on years from now. Rufus, touched by the sentimental notion, agreed enthusiastically. That's really thoughtful, Dad. Celeste will love that. I purchased a professional recording device the next day. Discrete model used by journalists. Voice-activated, 8-hour capacity. Tested it thoroughly. Audio quality was excellent. Oregon law permitted recording conversations where one party consented. I wasn't breaking any laws, just building an evidence foundation. I created an encrypted folder on my computer, labeled Family Archive 2025. Began a meticulous documentation system. Date, time, participants, key statements, potential legal relevance. Saturday arrived. I activated the recording device in my shirt pocket before Rufus and Celeste arrived for brunch. She entered with practiced warmth, kissed my cheek, brought expensive bakery pastries, complimented recent garden work. Over coffee, the conversation flowed naturally toward estate planning. Celeste initiated smoothly. Delbert, Rufus mentioned you haven't updated your will since his mother passed. That's 8 years. Estate law changes. Tax implications shift. Have you considered reviewing it? I played my role perfectly, slightly confused, appreciative of her concern. I suppose I should. Never been good with legal paperwork? You understand these matters? She leaned forward, eager. I work with attorneys regularly through real estate transactions. I'd be happy to recommend someone. Or we could discuss his family. Understanding everyone's situation helps with long-term planning. Family planning? I repeated carefully. You mean after you and Rufus marry? Exactly. Combined household finances, shared resources, coordinated investments. Modern families operate as economic units. Rufus chimed in, oblivious. Makes sense, Dad. Celeste has a business degree. She's better at financial strategy than either of us. I nodded slowly, playing elderly confusion. So you're suggesting... What exactly? Celeste's smile sharpened microscopically. Just transparency. Understanding what assets exist, how they're structured, what succession plans are. Prevents family conflicts later. I noted how quickly later entered her vocabulary. She was already planning my death. I'll think about it, I said mildly. After they left, I immediately uploaded the recording, time-stamped key moments. Her language revealed everything. Combined household, shared resources, succession plans. She wasn't planning marriage. She was planning acquisition. Over the following 2 weeks, Celeste increased contact frequency, called me directly, ostensibly asking opinions about wedding details, venue selection, catering choices, guest list, but conversations always drifted toward my property. This house is so large. Have you considered downsizing? Rufus and I could buy it from you at fair price. You could move somewhere more manageable. Another time, life insurance policies. Do you have adequate coverage? Rufus should be beneficiary, obviously, but have you structured it properly? Each probe grew more blatant. I recorded everything, maintained my naive persona. You're so thoughtful to help with these things. I never know what I'm doing. Internally, I cataloged her tactics with clinical precision. She was accelerating the timeline, trying to secure legal hooks before the wedding. Why the rush? Webb's surveillance showed Daniel Kraus pressing her, their relationship strained by her extended investment in Rufus. She was managing 2 men simultaneously, and the pressure was mounting. She was making mistakes, getting sloppy. Perfect. Late that second week, I transformed the spare bedroom into a command center, purchased a large corkboard, colored pins, index cards, string. At its center, Celeste's photograph from the engagement announcement. Left side, timeline of her relationship with Rufus. Right side, previous marriages with Kevin Morgan and James Pritchard. Top, financial motivations, property targets. Bottom, legal strategy options. Colored strings connected related elements. This visual architecture helped me see the entire pattern simultaneously, identify gaps in evidence, plan next moves. I photographed the board daily, tracking the evolution of the case. One evening, reviewing the latest recording of Celeste probing about my investment portfolio, I sat in that command center and let myself feel the cold fury I'd been suppressing. She actually said, "You're 62, like she was calculating years until inheritance. Most people avoided discussing a parent's mortality. She led with it, and Rufus just nodded along, thinking she was being practical. He couldn't hear what I heard. The assessment, the calculation, the timeline. She wasn't planning a wedding. She was planning an acquisition schedule. Not while I was breathing. 3 more weeks of careful performance. 3 more weeks of recorded conversations where Celeste probed estate planning, suggested property consolidations, calculated my mortality like an actuarial table. Each recording added to the growing file. Each interaction strengthened the legal case Patricia Reynolds was helping me build. Then Webb called. Found Kevin Morgan, lives in Seattle, works as tech consultant, divorced Celeste 3 years ago. I mentioned the investigation regarding her current engagement. He got very quiet, then asked if the new victim had children. Webb paused. When I said grown son, Morgan said, "Tell the father I'll talk to him." Not to an investigator, to the father directly. So I was driving to Seattle on a Thursday morning in June. Interstate 5 stretched north through familiar landscape. Evergreens, exits I'd taken during business trips decades ago. Beside me on the passenger seat, folder containing Webb's report, photographs of Celeste with Daniel, documented timeline of her manipulation, evidence to share, credibility to establish. The CAF? Kevin Chose was in Capitol Hill, quiet neighborhood spot with good coffee and corner booths. I arrived 30 minutes early, selected a table with clear sightlines to the entrance, positioned myself to observe. Kevin Morgan entered at the appointed time, average height, professionally dressed in business casual, carrying visible caution in his body language. I recognized him from the photograph Webb had provided. Stood, extended my hand. "Mr. Morgan, I'm Delbert Boyd. Thank you for agreeing to meet." He shook my hand, assessed me carefully before sitting. "Your investigator said she's engaged to your son. How old?" 37. Kevin winced visibly. "Perfect age. Old enough to have assets. Young enough to rebuild career. I was 39 when I met her." I ordered coffee for both of us. Didn't rush into interrogation. Instead asked, "How are you now? 3 years later?" Kevin appreciated the question. "Better. Rebuilt my consulting practice, though I lost a key client in the divorce settlement. She positioned herself on paper as a business partner, despite never working a day in her life. Financial recovery took 2 years. Emotional recovery is ongoing." His honesty broke the ice. I responded, "I'm trying to prevent my son from experiencing what you experienced. That's why I'm here. Not just for legal ammunition, though I need that, but to understand what I'm actually fighting." Kevin nodded slowly. "You're fighting a professional. She's not a casual con artist. She's studied this, perfected it, made it a career." Over the next hour, Kevin described the entire relationship arc. Met Celeste at a networking event where she positioned herself strategically near successful attendees. She did research, knew my company name, asked intelligent questions about cloud infrastructure, seemed genuinely interested in my work, not just my income. At least that's what I thought. The courtship was intense. She matched his interests perfectly, introduced him to expensive restaurants. After 4 months, she suggested engagement. Said, "When you know, you know." I was flattered. Previous relationships had been cautious, distant. Her certainty felt like validation. The prenuptial contract came with explanation. She said she'd been hurt before, needed legal clarity, wanted to protect both of us. The contract looked balanced. Equal division of assets acquired during marriage. I didn't understand the clause language. Family assets acquired during marriage actually meant anything either of us inherited or received from relatives became marital property. His father died 8 months into the marriage, left him $150,000 and a vintage car collection. According to the prenup, that became a marital asset. The marriage lasted 18 months. She changed after the wedding, distant, critical, increasingly demanding. Started an affair with a real estate investor. I found hotel receipts. When I confronted her, she filed for divorce immediately. Her attorney was aggressive. Mine was outmatched. Settlement cost him $180,000, the car collection, and 30% stake in his business. Kevin's voice stayed level, but his hands shook slightly, holding the coffee cup. She knew the timing, waited until the inheritance cleared, then pulled the trigger. The whole thing was planned from the beginning. I shared my own folder, Webb's investigation, recorded conversations with Celeste, timeline of manipulation. Kevin reviewed the materials with growing recognition. Same pattern. Exactly. Look at this line. Family resource consolidation. She used those exact words with me. It's scripted. He examined the photograph of Celeste with Daniel Kraus. Different man, same dynamic. She always has a backup plan, someone to fall back on when the mark is exhausted. I asked directly, "Would you be willing to provide a written statement? Testify if necessary to void her prenuptial contract with my son?" Kevin didn't hesitate. "Yes. I should have spoken up when the investigator contacted me after she married the second husband. Guilt's been eating at me. If I'd warned him—" I interrupted gently. "You're warning me now. That's what matters." We drafted the statement together on his laptop. Detailed timeline, specific manipulation tactics, financial outcome, pattern recognition. Kevin signed it, provided contact information. "Call me any time. Whatever you need. She shouldn't be allowed to keep doing this." As our meeting concluded, Kevin offered final insight. "Your son won't believe you at first. I wouldn't have believed anyone trying to warn me. She's that good at creating alternative reality. She'll have explanation for everything. The other man is a business associate. Previous marriages ended amicably. Your suspicions are overprotective paranoia." I acknowledge this fear. It's already happening. He's been distant, canceling our weekly dinners, making excuses. She's orchestrating it. Kevin nodded grimly. Textbook strategy. Separate target from support system, especially skeptics. Timing's crucial. You need overwhelming evidence presented at a moment he can't dismiss it, not gradual revelation, single devastating confrontation with irrefutable proof. I absorbed this advice. I'm building toward that. When I show him, it'll be the complete picture, not a fragment he can rationalize away. Kevin stood, shook my hand firmly. Save your son. I wish someone had saved me. I drove back to Portland with Kevin's signed statement secured in the folder beside me. I felt a shift in momentum. The pattern now had human testimony. The abstract became concrete. But as I crossed back into Oregon, my phone buzzed with a text from Rufus. Dad, sorry to cancel Sunday dinner again. Wedding planning is crazy busy. Celeste says we need to finalize the venue this weekend. Rain check? It was the third cancellation in 4 weeks. I recognized the strategy Kevin had warned about. Isolation by increments. Each excuse reasonable. Cumulative effect, separating target from protection. I responded simply, Of course, son. Let me know when you're free. But driving through late afternoon traffic, I calculated, the wedding was 10 weeks away. Celeste was accelerating her timeline, consolidating control over Rufus. My evidence gathering was thorough, but time-consuming. The question became, could I build a complete case before the wedding, locked Rufus into a legal trap? Mathematical problem. Architect's challenge. The answer needed to be yes. Kevin Morgan's signed statement joined the growing evidence file. I added it to the command center board, connecting his testimony to Celeste's current manipulation tactics with red string. The pattern was undeniable now, a professional operation refined over multiple victims. But collecting evidence and reaching my son were different challenges. The Sunday after the Seattle trip, Rufus called. Dad, can we reschedule dinner? Celeste needs help choosing between venues. I agreed. Following Sunday, photographer meeting ran late. Third Sunday. Sorry, Dad. Wedding planning is overwhelming. We'll catch up soon. 3 consecutive cancellations. Our tradition, maintained even during his college years abroad, now abandoned. Celeste was executing exactly what Kevin had warned about. Isolation by increments. By mid-July, I understood. She'd sensed something. My performance had slipped somehow, or her instincts detected danger. Either way, she was moving to neutralize me. Wednesday evening, I was preparing dinner when the phone rang. Rufus's voice carried unfamiliar tension. Dad, we need to talk. Celeste thinks. I've been thinking about our relationship. Warning bells immediately. I kept my voice neutral. What about it? You've been distant lately. When we visit, you ask strange questions. Celeste noticed you're recording conversations. She thinks it's because you don't trust her. My mind raced. How did she know about the recordings? Did Rufus tell her about the family history project? Son, those recordings are for preserving family memories, like I explained. That's what you said, but why do you need to record everything? It feels like surveillance, like you're looking for problems that don't exist. The phrasing, looking for problems that don't exist, was definitely Celeste's language. Rufus continued, Celeste thinks maybe you're having trouble letting me go. She says parents sometimes sabotage their kids' relationships because they fear abandonment. Textbook manipulation. Reframe protective concern as selfish control. I responded carefully. I support your happiness, Rufus. Always have. Then why does Celeste feel unwelcome? Why do you interrogate her about finances and estate planning? I don't interrogate. I engage in conversations she initiates. She says you twist things, make innocent questions seem suspicious. The conversation spiraled. Rufus grew defensive. I remained measured, but felt my son slipping away. The call ended with Rufus saying, Maybe we should take a break from dinners until after the wedding? Give everyone space to breathe? I agreed. What choice did I have? But recognized this as Celeste's victory. Complete isolation achieved. The following morning, I met Reynolds at her office, explained the deteriorating relationship with Rufus, Celeste's counterattack. She listened with professional sympathy. This is expected. She's protecting her investment. Your son is an asset she's cultivated. She won't let you interfere without a fight. Can I approach him now? Show him the evidence? Reynolds shook her head firmly. Partial revelation is dangerous. You'll show him the investigation. She'll explain it away. Your father hired a detective because he's paranoid. You present the previous marriages, she says. I was young, made mistakes, learned from them. You showed Daniel Kraus photographs, she claims. Business associate. Your father's twisting innocent meetings. Every piece of evidence you reveal prematurely becomes inoculation. She builds antibodies against the truth. So I do nothing while she turns him against me? You continue building the case. We need overwhelming proof presented at a moment she cannot spin it. Wedding day itself might be ideal. Public setting, emotional stakes high, her guard lowered by perceived victory. I considered this. You're suggesting I let the wedding proceed to the brink of disaster. I'm suggesting you strike when the target is most vulnerable. Celeste expects opposition before the wedding. She's defending against that. She won't expect opposition at the wedding. Element of surprise is your advantage. That afternoon, Webb called. She met Daniel again. Downtown Marriott, room 847. Spent 3 hours there yesterday. I couldn't get inside, obviously, but I planted an audio device in the hallway near the door. Not admissible in court, but gives us intelligence. He emailed the encrypted audio file. I downloaded it, played the recording through headphones. Hotel corridor sounds, elevator dings, footsteps, muffled voices. Then a door opening, Celeste's laugh, Daniel's lower voice. The door closed, but the device captured their conversation through poor insulation. Quality was marginal, but words emerged clearly enough. 10 more weeks of this charade? 8. Wedding's August 16th. After that, timeline accelerates. And the father? He's a problem? Handled. I have isolated the son effectively. Old man can suspect whatever he wants. Rufus won't believe him now. Sound of ice and glass. Movement. You said that about Morgan's brother. He nearly derailed everything. This is different. Rufus is more malleable. No close family except father, and I've poisoned that relationship. After the wedding, the prenup activates. Give it 18 months. 18 months playing devoted wife? I've done longer. Remember the contractor? 2 years of that tedium. This one's easier. He actually believes I love him. Cruel laughter from both. I stopped the playback. Sat in silence. Hearing her voice, not the warm tone she used with me, but cold calculation with Daniel, crystallized everything. This wasn't romance gone wrong. It was premeditated fraud, and Rufus was completely blind to it. The following Sunday, I violated my own strategic patience. Drove to Rufus's apartment unannounced, hoping to catch him alone. He answered the door with surprise, bordering on irritation. "Dad, what are you doing here?" "Wanted to see you. We've barely talked in weeks." He didn't invite me inside. We talked in the doorway, awkward and stilted. I tried an indirect approach. "Son, have you had an independent attorney review the prenuptial contract?" "Why would I need that? Celeste's attorney drafted it fairly. Standard practice to have separate legal counsel." "Dad, stop. This is exactly what Celeste warned about. You're trying to undermine our relationship." "I'm trying to protect. I don't need protection. I'm 37 years old, capable of making my own decisions." I saw Celeste's purse on the entry table, realized she was inside listening, probably coached this entire exchange. "Rufus, please, just listen." "No, you listen. If you can't support this marriage, maybe you shouldn't attend the wedding. Think about that." He closed the door. I stood in the empty hallway, feeling defeat. Driving home, I understood. Reynolds was right. Partial approach failed. I needed overwhelming confrontation, not gentle persuasion. But the cost was watching my son drift into disaster while I prepared. Back home, I updated the caseboard with latest developments. Created a new section. Counterattack timeline. Documented each cancellation. Rufus's changing language. Celeste's escalating control. Added the transcript of the hotel recording. Photographs Webb had captured. The evidence Webb covered an entire wall now. Financial documents, surveillance photos, Kevin Morgan's testimony, recorded conversations, timeline analysis. Any objective observer would see the clear pattern. But Rufus wasn't an objective observer. He was the target, the mark, the victim in progress. I stood before the board, architect analyzing complex structure. The foundation was solid. Legal framework through Reynolds, victim testimony through Kevin, surveillance evidence through Webb, documented manipulation through recordings. But timing remained the critical variable. Strike too early, the structure collapsed. Wait too long, Rufus was legally trapped. Wedding date, August 16th, loomed like a deadline. 8 weeks away now. I made my decision. Let Celeste think she'd won. Play the defeated father accepting loss. Lower her guard completely. Then at the wedding, when she was most vulnerable, most confident, most exposed, strike decisively. No warning, no mercy, complete revelation. Late July became early August. Weeks of silence from Rufus. No calls, no texts, complete radio silence. I maintained the strategic withdrawal, resisting every urge to reach out. Let Celeste believe she'd won. Let her guard drop. Meanwhile, the work continued. Webb submitted final surveillance reports. Celeste and Daniel met 4 times in 10 days as the wedding approached. Hotel rooms, expensive restaurants, extended afternoons at his waterfront condo. Each meeting documented, photographed, time-stamped. The pattern was clear. They were planning the post-wedding phase, confident in their scheme. Patricia Reynolds organized the evidence into a legal presentation. Victim testimony, financial documentation, surveillance materials, recorded conversations, prenuptial analysis. This would convince any judge, she said, but your audience is your son, not a court. Arrange materials for emotional impact, not just legal strength. 2 weeks before the wedding, I was ready. Then the phone rang. It was Wednesday evening, August 6th. I was in the command center arranging evidence packets when Rufus's name appeared on my screen. First call in 3 weeks. Dad. His voice was uncertain, almost sheepish. Hi, son. Silence stretched between us. Then, wedding Saturday. I know we've had distance lately, but you're still my father. I want you there. I was careful. Does Celeste want me there? He trailed off. She thinks maybe it's not a good idea. But it's my wedding too. I'm inviting you. I appreciate that. Of course I'll attend. Really? I thought maybe you'd... I support your happiness, Rufus. Always have. More silence. I sensed he wanted to say more, couldn't quite form the words. Finally, ceremonies at 3 p.m. Brookside Country Club, reception following. You don't have to stay long if it's awkward. I'll stay as long as appropriate, I said, but I need to tell you something important at the wedding. Will you give me a few minutes of your time? Before or after the ceremony? Your choice. Important? Like what? Information you need to have. About your future. Your marriage. His defensive tone returned. If this is more criticism of Celeste, it's information. What you do with it is your choice. Just promise you'll listen. Reluctantly. Fine. After the ceremony. Brief conversation. Thank you. That's all I ask. The call ended. I sat motionless, processing. Rufus, reaching out, despite Celeste's objections, suggested that manipulation wasn't absolute. Some part of him still valued our relationship, still wanted his father's presence. This complicated the emotional calculus. The revelation would devastate him, but the alternative was worse. The first week of August, I transformed months of accumulated materials into strategic presentation. Created 3 identical evidence packets, one for Rufus, one for Reynolds as legal backup, one for my own reference. Each packet organized chronologically. Section 1, Background, Kevin Morgan's written testimony, financial records of previous divorces, pattern analysis. Section 2, Current deception, Webb's surveillance photographs of Celeste with Daniel spanning 3 months, hotel records, timeline showing meetings throughout Rufus's courtship. Section 3, Manipulation evidence, transcripts of recorded conversations highlighting financial probing, estate planning pressure, isolation tactics. Section 4, The Smoking Gun, transcript of the hotel hallway recording where Celeste and Daniel discuss timeline, financial calculations, explicit acknowledgement of the scheme. Section 5, Legal analysis, Reynolds' assessment of the prenuptial contract, fraud indicators, grounds for annulment. Each section marked with color-coded tabs, key passages highlighted. The presentation was a masterwork of architectural organization, logical flow, building evidence systematically, culminating in undeniable conclusion. I sealed the packets in professional folders, labeled them simply, The Truth About Celeste Morgan, stored 2 copies in the safe, kept one accessible for wedding day, also created a digital backup on an encrypted USB drive. If physical materials were somehow compromised, the evidence survived. August 8th, I met Reynolds for what we both understood was the final pre-confrontation session. She reviewed the evidence packets, pronounced them devastating, then addressed practical concerns. Wedding day revelation is high-risk strategy. Rufus will be emotionally vulnerable, potentially defensive. Celeste will try to control the narrative immediately. You need to present everything at once. Give him no time to process through her filter. What's your recommendation? Pull him aside privately after the ceremony, if possible. Find a moment when you can speak to him alone with the evidence. She paused. What's your extraction plan? Extraction? After revelation, Rufus will need space away from Celeste to process. She'll try to isolate him immediately. Spin the evidence. You need somewhere he can go. Your house, hotel room, anywhere she can't follow. I hadn't considered this. My house. I'll insist he come home with me to discuss. Reynolds nodded. Good. Have a bag packed for him. Clothes, toiletries, whatever he might need for a few days. Show him you're prepared to support him through the aftermath. August 10th, Webb delivered his concluding investigation materials. Final photographs showed Celeste and Daniel at a waterfront restaurant 3 days prior, their conversation apparently intense. Based on their body language and duration, 2 hours, I'd say they're finalizing post-wedding plans. She's stressed. He's reassuring. Timeline's approaching, and she's feeling pressure. Webb also provided financial intelligence. I pulled Daniel's recent transactions through a source I have. He's paid for all their hotel rooms, dinners, even bought her expensive jewelry she probably won't wear around Rufus. He's invested significantly in this relationship. I absorbed this additional dimension. So Daniel's a victim too, in his way? Willing victim. He knows what she's doing to your son. That recording proved it. He's complicit. Webb extended his hand. Good luck. This has been the most satisfying case in years, stopping a predator before she completes the cycle. August 12th, evening, 4 days before the wedding. I was reviewing the evidence packets when the phone rang again. Rufus's voice. Ceremonies at 3 p.m. Brookside Country Club. I know I already told you, but I wanted to make sure you're really coming. I'll be there, son. Okay, thanks, Dad. After he hung up, I sat in silence. That night, I wrote a letter to Rufus, sealed it in an envelope to be opened only if the confrontation went catastrophically wrong. Explanation of the investigation, motivation, evidence location, apology for method, but not for intention. Place the letter in my safe deposit box with instructions for my attorney. Backup plan in case of worst outcomes. August 15th, Friday evening, night before the confrontation. I prepared methodically, laid out my formal suit, ensured the evidence folder was ready, tested the recording device, small digital recorder that fit in my jacket pocket, reviewed key talking points for presentation, ate a light dinner, needed a calm stomach tomorrow, sat in the command center one final time, reviewing the evidence board, months of work compressed into tomorrow's minutes. I photographed the entire board with my phone, visual record of the investigation's evolution, then systematically dismantled it, filed the materials. The command center transformed back into a guest bedroom. Physical evidence removed, but psychological preparation complete. That night, sleep was elusive. I lay in darkness, mind running through scenarios. Best case, Rufus sees the truth immediately, leaves with me, cuts contact with Celeste. Worst case, Rufus believes her spin, chooses fiancé over father, proceeds with wedding. Most likely, confusion, denial, gradual acceptance over hours or days. I was prepared for all scenarios, but hoped for swift recognition. As dawn approached, I finally slept briefly, dreaming of construction sites and buildings collapsing, of foundations that held and those that failed. Woke at 6. Wedding day had arrived. Wedding morning arrived with gray Portland skies, threatening rain that never came. I dressed methodically. Formal charcoal suit, white shirt, conservative tie. The evidence folder slipped into my jacket's inner pocket. Weight barely noticeable, but presence constant. Digital recorder tested one final time. Battery full, memory clear. Voice activated function engaged. I arrived at Brookside Country Club 90 minutes before the ceremony. Wanted to observe the setup, understand venue layout, identify private spaces where post-ceremony conversation with Rufus could occur. The club occupied rolling hillside overlooking Willamette Valley, manicured lawns, vintage architecture, discreet wealth. The parking lot was already filling with expensive vehicles. Inside, controlled chaos of final preparations, florists adjusting arrangements, caterers organizing the reception hall, photographer testing lighting angles. I positioned myself strategically for the ceremony. Back row, aisle seat, clear sightline. Guests arrived in waves. Celeste's side filled quickly with well-dressed strangers. Rufus's side remained sparse, evidence of the isolation she'd engineered. I recognized few of his colleagues, no close friends. The wedding party assembled, then the processional music began. Celeste appeared at the aisle's head, objectively beautiful in an elaborate white gown that probably cost $15,000. She walked toward Rufus with practiced grace, smile radiating confidence. I activated the recording device with a subtle pocket touch. Vows were exchanged. I promised to love, honor, cherish, each word from Celeste's mouth, a documented lie. Rings placed. I now pronounce you husband and wife. Guests applauded. The couple kissed. I watched my son seal a legal trap, knowing I had perhaps 30 minutes to spring him free. The reception began in the adjacent ballroom. Cocktail hour proceeded. Champagne flowing. Appetizers circulating. I maintained a peripheral position, declined alcohol, observed. Celeste remained attached to Rufus's arm, steering conversations, intercepting anyone who approached him independently. Classic control behavior. I tracked the venue layout mentally. Main ballroom, side rooms for private conversations, emergency exits, DJ booth with microphone set up for toasts. Identified optimal private space, small library off the main hallway. Door closes, windows provide light, furniture suitable for document review. Reception transitioned to seated dinner. Assigned seating placed me at table 8, far from the head table where the newlyweds sat elevated. Deliberate slight, undoubtedly Celeste's arrangement. Throughout dinner I watched her. She was radiant, victorious, completely confident. Perfect. Then dessert concluded, and the DJ announced, "Now we'll hear from the bride's parents," followed by father of the groom. Before toasts began, Celeste excused herself from the head table. She detoured to my table, leaned down close, voice low enough only I could hear. "Delbert, I want to thank you. You raised a wonderful son. Your job is complete now." She paused, gauging my reaction. I remained expressionless. "This is my family now. Rufus and I discussed it. We need space to build our marriage without interference, meaning you should probably leave soon. You've been here for the ceremony. That's sufficient." "Rufus asked me to stay for toasts," I said calmly. "Rufus asks for many things when he's being sentimental. I'm telling you what's actually best for him. And frankly," her mask slipped slightly, contempt breaking through, "you're excess here. You don't fit with our friends, our lifestyle, our future. Go home. Don't come back." She straightened, smoothed her dress. I spoke quietly. "All right, Celeste." She smiled, vindicated. "But I'm taking someone with me when I leave." She paused, processed this. "Taking someone? What does that mean?" "You'll see shortly." Something in my tone finally registered. Her confidence wavered microscopically. "What are you—" "Enjoy your reception, Celeste. What's left of it." I stood, walked toward the DJ booth. She watched, uncertainty blooming into concern, but couldn't pursue without creating a scene. I reached the DJ booth as the bride's parents concluded their generic well wishes. The DJ extended the microphone. "You're next, sir, father of the groom." I accepted the microphone, stepped to where the entire reception could see me. 200 faces turned my direction. Rufus watched from the head table, anxious but expecting a conventional toast. Celeste's expression showed first real alarm. "Thank you all for attending this celebration. I'm Delbert Boyd, Rufus's father." Standard opening. Guests relax slightly. Traditionally, this is the moment for a toast, celebration, well wishes. Welcoming a new family member? Pause. "I'm not giving that toast. What I have to say is more important than tradition. Rufus," I looked directly at my son, "I need to speak with you. Privately. Immediately. This cannot wait." The room's energy shifted, sensing irregularity. Rufus half stood. "Dad? What are you—" "Rufus, I need to speak with you. Privately. Right now. This is extraordinarily important." Silence blanketed the reception. Celeste's face drained of color. This can wait. Let's continue the reception. Address family matters later. No, I interrupted firmly. This cannot wait. Rufus, give me 10 minutes. Private conversation. What I show you will change everything. Reception frozen in confused silence. Guests whispered, uncertain whether this was planned drama or real conflict. Rufus stood fully, torn between my urgency and Celeste's restraining hand on his arm. She hissed something inaudible. He shook his head, stepped away from the table. 10 minutes, Dad. Then you need to explain why you're disrupting my wedding. He walked toward me. Celeste rose to follow. I raised my hand. Just Rufus. This conversation is between father and son. He's my husband now, Celeste protested. I have a right. You have no rights to this conversation. Rufus, please. Library down that hall. Just us. Rufus nodded, uncertainty clear but curiosity stronger. We walked toward the exit. Behind us, Celeste called, Rufus, don't let him manipulate you. Whatever he's about to say. Her voice faded as we entered the hallway. I guided my son to the library, opened the door, gestured inside. Rufus entered. I followed, closed the door firmly. Through the wood, muffled sounds of the agitated reception. We were alone now. The moment of truth had arrived. The library door clicked shut. Silence pressed against us, thick, anticipatory, breakable. Rufus stood near the bookshelf, arms crossed defensively, jaw set, his wedding suit still perfect, boutonniere still fresh, husband for less than 3 hours. All right, he said tersely. 10 minutes. You've destroyed my wedding reception for this. Show me whatever evidence justifies that. I removed the folder from my jacket, placed it on the mahogany table centered in the room, maybe 2 inches thick, months of investigation compressed to portable form. My hands were steady. I'd spent too long preparing for this moment to tremble now. Before I open this, understand something. Everything inside was legally obtained. Nothing fabricated, nothing misinterpreted. Independent verification available for every claim. Why are you talking like a lawyer? Just show me. I opened the folder to the first section. This is testimony from Kevin Morgan. Rufus frowned. Who? Celeste's first husband. His expression flickered. Surprise. She told me she'd never been married. I slid the document across the table. Read it. He picked up the pages reluctantly, began scanning. Kevin's statement was detailed. Courtship timeline, engagement after 4 months, prenuptial contract, marriage duration, financial manipulation, divorce settlement costing him $180,000 plus business stake. Rufus read slowly, color beginning to drain. This could be fake. Anyone could write. Kevin signed it. Notarized statement. He's willing to testify under oath. Here's his contact information. Call him right now if you doubt. I pushed my phone across the table. Rufus stared at the document, not reaching for the phone. There's a second husband, I continued quietly. James Pritchard. Similar pattern, similar outcome. She's done this before, Rufus. Twice. You're the third target. No. The word came out weak. She would have told me. Why would she tell you? That information destroys the illusion she's carefully built. I opened the second section. Photographs spilled across the table. Celeste and Daniel Kraus at restaurants, entering hotels, walking through parks. Timestamps spanning March through August. Who is that? Rufus asked, voice hollow. Daniel Kraus, real estate agent. They've been involved for at least 8 months, longer than she's known you. I laid out images chronologically. Early March meeting, April hotel visit, May afternoon at his condo, continuing through 2 weeks ago. Every time she claimed late work meeting, client showing, she was with him. Rufus picked up a photograph showing them kissing outside a hotel entrance. His hand trembled. You hired a private investigator to follow my fiancé? I hired an investigator after accidentally seeing them together. Would you have believed me without proof? This doesn't mean maybe it ended before we got serious. It didn't end. Look at the dates. This one, I pointed to a recent photo, was 3 days before your wedding. I opened the third section, financial documents. Look at the divorce settlements. Pattern of timing. Marry quickly, stay 18 months to 2 years, file for divorce once significant assets have been acquired. Your prenup, it's designed to maximize her financial access after 1 year. Stop! Rufus's voice broke. This is... He couldn't finish. I pressed forward, had to complete the presentation while his defenses were crumbling. During wedding planning, I recorded family conversations. You gave permission, remember, of Family History Project? Rufus nodded numbly. I recorded because I suspected manipulation. I opened my laptop, cued audio files. Listen. I pressed play. Celeste's voice filled the library, warm and concerned. Delbert, have you updated your will recently? Estate planning is so important. Recording continued through her probing questions about property value, inheritance structure, succession planning. Each clip showed calculated financial interests masked as helpful concern. Rufus listened with growing horror. One more piece, I said. Most important. I cued the final audio file. This was recorded in a hotel hallway. Audio quality isn't perfect, but the words are clear enough. I pressed play. Celeste's voice emerged, talking to Daniel. 8 more weeks of this charade. Her laugh, cruel and calculated. Daniel. And the father? He's a problem? Handled. I've isolated the son effectively. Old man can suspect whatever he wants. Rufus won't believe him now. Sound of movement, ice clinking. Daniel, you said that about Morgan's brother. Celeste, this is different. Rufus is more malleable. After the wedding, the prenup activates. Give it 18 months. Daniel, 18 months playing devoted wife? Celeste, I've done longer. This one's easier. He actually believes I love him. Their laughter. I stopped the playback. Silence crushed the library. Rufus sat frozen, face completely drained of color. His breathing had gone shallow. For 30 seconds he didn't move. Then, that's her voice. Not a question. Statement. Yes. She called our marriage a charade. Yes. She said I'm malleable, that I believe she loves me. His voice cracked on the final words. I'm sorry, son. He stood abruptly, paced to the window, stared out at manicured grounds where hours ago he'd married the woman whose voice still echoed. He actually believes I love him. The prenuptial contract, I said gently. It's designed to maximize her financial access. If you stay married 12 months, she's entitled to 40% of assets acquired during marriage. Legal trap disguised as mutual protection. Rufus turned from the window. His face had transformed, shock giving way to something colder. She planned this from the beginning. Researched me, targeted me, performed caring girlfriend, manipulated me away from you, married me, all for money. Yes. What do I do? His voice was empty. First decision is simpler. Do you continue this reception celebrating a marriage that's built on lies, or do you end it now? He looked at the closed door. Beyond it, 200 guests waited. Celeste waited. Music probably playing. I end it, he said quietly. Then louder. I end it now. He walked to the door, yanked it open, strode down the hallway toward the reception. I followed, carrying the folder. We entered the reception hall together. The music stopped. The DJ noticed our entrance. Conversations died as guests turned. Celeste stood from the head table, relief crossing her face, until she saw Rufus's expression. He walked directly to her, stopping 3 feet away, the entire room watching. The wedding is canceled, Rufus announced, voice carrying to every corner. Gasps rippled through the guests. Celeste's face went white. Everyone can leave. Reception is over. I apologize for the disruption, but this marriage was a mistake. Please go. He turned, walked back toward the exit. Celeste found her voice. Rufus, what did he tell you? What lies? The truth, Rufus said without turning. About Daniel. About your previous marriages. About your plans for our marriage. He's lying. He's manipulating you. Showed you fabricated evidence. Rufus stopped. Turned. I heard your voice, on recording, discussing timeline, calling me malleable, laughing about how I actually believe you love me. Her face drained further. That was taken out of context. What context makes 18 months of charade acceptable? She had no answer. Stop. Just stop, Celeste. He looked at the confused guests. Please leave. This is over. Celeste turned on me, screaming, You destroyed my wedding. I'll sue you for harassment, defamation, invasion of privacy. Everything was obtained legally, I said calmly. One-party consent recording laws, standard surveillance, voluntary testimony. Your attorney will confirm it's admissible. You'll regret this, both of you. I'll take everything in court. You'll get nothing, Rufus said. The prenup is void due to fraud. My attorney's already prepared annulment papers. He walked toward the exit. I followed. Behind us, chaos erupted. Guests standing, confused conversations, Celeste's voice rising in desperate protest. We pushed through the doors into evening air, father and son, together. We drove away from Brookside Country Club in silence. Rufus sat in the passenger seat, still wearing his wedding suit, minus the boutonniere he'd torn off and discarded. His hands trembled slightly, shock settling into his system like poison. At my house, he went directly to the guest room, his childhood bedroom, essentially unchanged, and stayed there 3 hours. I didn't intrude. Let him process alone. When he emerged, his face was blotchy from crying, but his voice was steady. Tell me what happens next legally. That night, we called Patricia Reynolds. She arrived within the hour, spread evidence across my dining table, explained legal strategy. Rufus listened like a man receiving a terminal diagnosis, absorbing information about dissolution of the life he thought he'd built. 5 days later, Celeste's attorney served papers. She was suing for breach of contract and emotional damages. $1 million. Reynolds smiled when she read it. Perfect. She's engaging on legal ground where we're strongest. We met in Reynolds' office a week after the wedding confrontation, morning light through windows. The three of us around a conference table covered with legal documents and evidence files. Reynolds reviewed Celeste's lawsuit with professional detachment. She's claiming you breached the prenuptial contract by refusing to honor the marriage, seeking enforcement of contract terms plus emotional distress damages. Classic aggressive legal posturing meant to intimidate you into settlement. Rufus looked exhausted. Can she win? No. The contract was procured through fraud. Your father documented that extensively. But we'll need to prove fraudulent intent in court. That means presenting all evidence publicly. Kevin Morgan's testimony, surveillance materials, recordings, financial analysis. She paused, assessing Rufus carefully. This will be painful. Your private humiliation becomes public record. Celeste's attorneys will argue you were a willing participant who changed his mind after the wedding. They'll paint you as vindictive. Let them, I said, because we have her voice on recording, calling the marriage a charade, discussing an 18-month timeline, laughing about his belief in her love. We have 2 previous victims with identical patterns. Reynolds organized papers into presentation folders. The hearing is scheduled 2 weeks out. I'll file a counter motion to void the contract based on fraud. We'll request the court also refer the matter to the district attorney for criminal investigation. The week before the hearing, Reynolds conducted practice testimony with Rufus. She played opposing counsel, attacking his credibility with brutal efficiency. Mr. Boyd, isn't it true you willingly pursued a relationship with Ms. Morgan? That you proposed marriage? That you signed the prenuptial agreement after reviewing its terms? Rufus, exhausted from emotional turmoil, struggled to maintain composure. Yes, but I didn't know. Didn't know what? That relationships require trust? Or did you simply regret your decision and concoct an elaborate fraud narrative to escape consequences? That's not. You hired a private investigator to follow your fiancé, recorded private conversations. These are actions of a paranoid, controlling individual, not a victim. Rufus's hands clenched. Reynolds softened, returned to her normal tone. That's what they'll do. Twist facts, attack character. You need to stay calm, stick to evidence. When they attack, respond simply. I believed I was in an honest relationship. Evidence proved otherwise. The courthouse hearing room was smaller than I expected. Wood paneling, judge's bench elevated, gallery seating for perhaps 30 people. Celeste sat at the plaintiff's table with 2 attorneys. Designer suit, projecting confidence. She avoided eye contact with us. Judge Margaret Chen, mid-50s, reviewed the filings with evident skepticism toward Celeste's claims. Reynolds presented our case first. Your Honor, this isn't a simple contract dispute. It's exposure of systematic fraud. Ms. Morgan has a pattern of targeting financially stable men, marrying quickly, positioning herself legally, then divorcing profitably. Mr. Boyd is the 3rd known victim. We have testimony from a previous husband. Kevin Morgan took the stand, sworn in, recounted his experience. Celeste's attorney objected repeatedly, irrelevant to current case, but Judge Chen allowed testimony. Pattern evidence is relevant to fraudulent intent claims. Kevin was articulate, detailed, credible. Described identical courtship tactics, prenuptial manipulation, financial devastation. Under cross-examination, Celeste's attorney tried discrediting him. Isn't it true you're bitter about your divorce? That you've contacted Ms. Morgan's subsequent partners, seeking revenge? I contacted this young man's father, Kevin corrected firmly, to prevent him from suffering what I suffered. That's not revenge. That's decency. Gallery observers took visible notice. Reynolds then played the hotel recording. The courtroom heard Celeste's voice. 18 months of charade. He actually believes I love him. Laughter. Judge Chen's expression hardened. Celeste whispered urgently to her attorneys. Reynolds' financial expert, forensic accountant Thomas Brennan, testified about Celeste's divorce settlements. 2 previous marriages, both ending in substantial financial transfers, pattern of timing suggesting calculated extraction. Based on documentation, Ms. Morgan's income from consulting work averages $40,000 annually, yet her lifestyle exceeds 3 times that income. The discrepancy is explained by divorce settlements totaling over $400,000 combined. Celeste's attorneys argued circumstantial evidence, character assassination, selective presentation, but momentum had shifted decisively. Judge Chen delivered her ruling from the bench. Having reviewed evidence, including recorded admissions, testimony from a previous victim, and financial analysis, this court finds the prenuptial agreement was procured through fraudulent misrepresentation and concealment of material facts. The contract is void. Plaintiff's claims for breach and damages are dismissed with prejudice. She paused, consulting notes. Furthermore, evidence suggests potential criminal fraud. The court is referring this matter to Multnomah County District Attorney for investigation into possible charges under Oregon fraud statutes. Ms. Morgan, you should consult with criminal defense attorney. The gavel struck. Celeste's face went ashen. Her attorneys immediately requested private conference. Reynolds leaned toward us. That's complete victory. She has nothing now. Outside the courthouse, late August afternoon, sunshine felt surreal after the windowless hearing room. Reporters approached, but Reynolds deflected them professionally. Rufus stood on the steps, physically present but emotionally distant. It's over? He asked quietly. The civil case is over, I confirmed. Criminal investigation is beginning. But for you, yes, you're free. He nodded slowly, processing. I still can't believe I didn't see it. Every sign was there. She's a professional. That's the point. Making marks, not see signs. We walked to the parking structure. Reynolds followed, carrying her briefcase of legal documents. The district attorney's office will contact you both for statements. Likely they'll prosecute. Evidence is overwhelming. She'll probably accept a plea deal rather than trial. As we reached my car, my phone buzzed. Text from Webb. Daniel Kraus just posted public statement distancing himself from Celeste. Claims he was misled about nature of her relationship with Rufus. Rats fleeing sinking ship. I showed Rufus the message. He read it without expression. Then finally something like satisfaction crossed his face. Good, he said. Let everyone know what she is. We drove home together. Weeks passed. Rufus stayed in my guest room, emerging gradually from shock. First week, mostly silent. Second week, small conversations. Third week brought the apology I hadn't requested, but he needed to give. Dad, I owe you an apology, Rufus said one evening, for doubting you, for choosing her manipulation over your protection. You saw what I couldn't. I'm sorry. You trusted someone you loved, I replied. That's human nature. She exploited it professionally. You listened when it mattered. At the wedding, you gave me those 10 minutes. That took courage. How do we fix our relationship? Same way you'd fix any structure. Assess foundation, repair cracks, rebuild systematically. We resumed Sunday dinners. Simple routine, gradually rebuilding connection. Fourth Sunday, he mentioned starting therapy, counselor specializing in manipulation recovery. She's helping me identify the tactics I missed, he said. That awareness prevents repeat, I confirmed. A month later, Rufus raised finances. Wedding cost $50,000. My savings are gone. I'll loan you $50,000. 3% interest. 5-year repayment. He looked surprised. You don't have to charge interest. This is a loan, not a gift. Loans preserve responsibility. You'll repay this because you'll take ownership of recovery. He signed the agreement carefully. Thank you for treating me like an adult who made an expensive mistake. Early September, Reynolds called with updates. DA accepted Celeste's plea deal. 3 years probation, restitution, criminal record. She left Portland. License revoked, reputation destroyed. Based on your case, Reynolds added, DA found 2 additional potential victims. You stopped a serial predator. Late August afternoon, Rufus and I stood on my terrace overlooking Portland. Sunset painted the sky orange and purple. I've been thinking about trust, Rufus said. I trusted her blindly. Now I'm paranoid. Neither is healthy. Trust is important, I agreed, but verification is more important. Trust, then verify. Watch for consistency between words and actions. Celeste's words were perfect. Her actions revealed truth. Like blueprint inspection, he said, design can be beautiful, but you verify the calculations. Exactly. You're an architect's son after all. He smiled. First genuine smile in months. I'm lucky. Some people don't have a father who builds cases to save them. Some do. They just need to recognize protection when it's offered. I recognize it now. We stood in comfortable silence as the sun set, relationship healed, justice served, fresh start established. The architect's work was complete. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.